Hey friend, welcome back to the Care Collective podcast. This is a space where we talk about the parts of caregiving that don't get said out loud and the feelings that kind of sit in your chest maybe a little bit too long, and the ones that make you feel like you're the only one in the world experiencing this. I promise that you are not as real as that feeling feels, because I know I have felt it myself. And today's episode is for anyone who has ever been told, if it's too much to be a caregiver, you can just stop. Or maybe it's family that says something like, you chose to do this, you could have put them in a nursing home. And you just feel something completely shut down and feel like you can't say anything, or maybe you did go off on that person, I think that when people say things like that, there's a lot of different responses that our bodies can have. And I wish that they didn't say it, and I'm sorry that people say that to you, as much as, my apology probably doesn't mean anything. I'm sure you would like an apology from the other person. I wanted to talk about this feeling today and what we can kind of do about it, or ways we can reframe it for ourselves, or ways to respond in the moment, to try to combat that feeling, because that's heavy and that's disappointing that the people in your life say those kind of things. And I hear this all the time from caregivers, that they get it from family members, from friends. Maybe you even hear this from a doctor or therapist that sees the stress that it is causing you and is like, there's other alternative ways to get help. And you're like, yes, but I am the helper for my person. I need to be doing everything right. Maybe they say things like, you don't have to do this, or if it's stressing you out, maybe you should step back, or you chose to take this on. And I think on the surface, that can sound very logical to a person. Maybe it even sounds helpful. But if you're a caregiver, you know that it does not land that way, because for so many of you, it's never actually felt like a choice. And I think for so many people, it also becomes intertwined with who you are as a person, that the idea of letting that go, that's attacking who you are as a person. Now, they don't see it that way. They see it as something external causing you stress, but you have internalized this to the point that you do not want to let go of this pain, right? So let's talk through why it doesn't feel like a choice. Because what were your options, really? You're going to leave your mom when she couldn't get out of the bed. You're going to ignore your dad when he started forgetting things. Walk away when no one else stepped in. I think sometimes people get frustrated if it's their siblings saying this to them, and they're the ones that have had to step up because nobody else would, right? For a lot of caregivers, that choice looks like, if I don't do this, who will? And that is not choice. That's responsibility. It's love. It's pressure. It's stepping into something because you know that your heart will not let you do anything else. It just feels unnatural, again, like against your very nature to not step up and help. You don't sit down and weigh the pros and cons like a business decision. You just respond to a need and you step up. And I think that's what, I think is amazing about so many caregivers, is just that innate ability that you have to step up because of that obligation. But what makes it even harder is hearing people say you chose this when you're actively losing sleep, you're putting your life on hold in so many aspects, and you're carrying that emotional weight that most people will never fully understand. It can make you feel invalidated, misunderstood, and honestly a little alone, because it's like, how do you explain something that feels so obvious to you but invisible to everyone else? And here's the part that I think no one talks about. Even if you did technically choose to step in, I guess in some ways they could be right that you do have a choice. That doesn't mean you had a real choice, because the alternative often felt unbearable. You could choose yourself, or you could choose the person you love. And for so many of you, that's not a real choice. That's not an option. So when somebody says you chose this, what you hear is, then you don't get to feel overwhelmed. You don't get to struggle. You don't get to be tired, because you chose all of these feelings. So you need to sit with your decision now, and that's just not true. So if no one has said to you lately, I want you to hear that you are allowed to feel overwhelmed even if you chose this role. You are allowed to feel exhausted even if you love your person deeply. You are allowed to grieve the life you had even if you would make the same decision again. You're also allowed to sit with the feeling of, I'm grateful for the ways it's changed me and the things that I've learned from it, but if I could go back, I would not choose for this to happen to me, right? And just because you stayed doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, and just because you care doesn't mean you have not been stretched beyond what you ever expected to do. And I think that, again, can be some of the most painful parts, is when things go further than you expected it to. And so, kind of to reframe, these things and how you might be feeling, I want you to know that this is not about proving people wrong. It's not about needing them to fully understand, because the truth is a lot of people are not going to understand. They haven't lived it. But what matters is that you understand your own heart. You know what's going on in your brain, in your mind, in your soul. You didn't step into caregiving because it was convenient. You didn't do it because it was easy. You decided to step up because something in you said, I can't not show up. And I think that says a lot about you as a human being, and I think you should absolutely be proud of yourself. So if you've been carrying that frustration or that quiet hurt when people say you chose this, I hope this episode reminded you that your experience is 100% valid. And please go back and re-listen to this anytime somebody says that to you if you need a little pep talk, because you are not wrong for feeling the way you do. And if this is something you've experienced, I would absolutely love to hear from you. You can always message me on Instagram, and if you know someone in your life who doesn't quite understand caregiving, maybe this is an episode worth sharing with them. You're always welcome to steal things that I say and use it to explain your feelings to people. And again, I'm not trying to prove a point. I really just truly hope that you are able to find people in your life that see you and understand you, because I think there is nothing more human than having somebody see you for who you are and understand you as a human being. And I also think that that is just something that we, crave. And I think especially as you're seeing these relationships in your life deteriorate, maybe it's your parents, maybe you felt like they were the only person that really truly saw you. It is so important for you to be able to find that sense of validation in other people, whether it's from a spouse, whether it's from another caregiver friend, whatever it is in your life. I think that there is room to be able to not replace these relationships, because let's be honest, who's ever going to replace the person that you're losing? No one. That's just the reality of it. But being able to expand your world and open up to new connections, that's the ultimate thing that I would hope for anyone here. So I think, if you are dealing with people in your life saying some of these kind of cruel and, things that I think are just straight up unnecessary, again, I truly hope that you're able to find people in your corner. And if you need somebody in your corner, you can always turn to the Care Collective podcast and find plenty of people that want to support you and are here to walk with you through any part of the journey. So I hope that this was helpful. Again, please reach out to me if you ever need someone to talk to, and I'll talk to you next episode.